Today
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have with us in the next episode of Journal Talk, Mr. Mihir. And Mihir Mishra has been working with Economic Times. You've been all reading some great articles from him in Economic Times. And thank you, Mihir, for joining us, accepting this invitation to be part of this series where I'm talking to a lot of journalists who have been in covering aviation for quite some time, breaking some interesting stories, writing some insightful articles. And the idea today is to really understand your journey in this field of journalism. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you, Amir. Thanks.
Great. So let's begin, Mir. Now, we would really like to understand how long you have been in journalism and how did you made your mark and entry into this field.
Uh, I don't know about making my mark yet, but because making your mark is a continuous process, goes on till you're reporting. But leaving that aside, so journalism. I think I joined journalism in 2007. So I came out of IIMC. Then I joined Pioneer for 6-7 months. Then I moved to Business Standard. This was on the desk side of journalism. And then in Business Standard, I moved to reporting. So I had fine editors in Bhupesh and AKB who actually helped me move from, and also Suveen Sinha who helped me move from desk to reporting. And since then, I have been reporting. And interestingly, I'll tell you this. Aviation did not happen to me in the first place. In the sense that when I was given reporting, I was given railways, roads. All these infrastructure sectors to cover, uh, excluding aviation. But then, um, after a month and a half, aviation happened to me, and since then I've been writing on aviation. Then I moved to Express, and there also I moved not to write on aviation, but to write on other beats. But then the aviation reporter there resigned, and then I was doing aviation. So aviation is kind of stuck to me, and then and then I moved to Economic Times, and I've been here for about 7.5 years now. So the journey has been fine, I guess. Nothing to complain.
Interesting point. So it was a mix of luck and no choice that you landed up in aviation. Everywhere you went, you were away from it, and it
Yeah,
just came to you. Interesting. So
yeah.
you are the first member from your family to be in journalism, or you have a family lineage in journalism?
No, no, no family line. In fact, I'll tell you this interesting story. I won't name the person. I won't name the publication. But I once went when I was, of course, looking for jobs. I went and met this managing editor of a magazine. He interviewed me and asked me questions. I was a fresher then, whatever he had to. And then in the end, he asks me, "So, are you the first one in your family to join journalism?" I said, "Yes." So then he asked me, "What does your dad do?" and things like that, or your parents do, and things like that. And then he said, "It won't be easy for you. First person from a non-journalist family, but best wishes from my side." Of course, I didn't get that job, needless to say. But yeah, so the initial years were like that. But then, then I think, then I moved to Business Standard, and I think Business Standard, uh, does look at a person from from an ability that he or she has, and not from the lineage perspective. And even post that, even Express, I was hired because of my work. Same with ET. And these places I think are places that look at your talent and not your family lineage, or that kind of a thing.
Hmm. So yeah, the challenge
So
is to get in. Then you are part of the fraternity.
yeah, see, but that's the fun of it. No, I mean, in the sense, see, I'm sure there are people who may not have been able to make it, but there are also people who have been able to make it. There are so many fine journalists, and there are so many young journalists, coming up every day from families with no journalist there. So I mean, there are so many success stories. So I think this should not discourage anyone to, not.
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
let me be honest, the interviews which I'm taking across, your colleagues across different publications, most of them
yeah,
happen to be first generation ones and have similar
yeah,
stories like yours to share. So that's heartening to see the industry open up to more people. No
correct.
mummy, papa there, so I am there kind of,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
nothing.
yeah.
Abhi, the way things are in political parties, that's not being replicated here. So that's good to see. So how was your
Yeah, I
reaction
mean,
from the
not the same. Yeah.
yeah, parents and other extended family when you said journalism because that's a new field. And I think back in 2000 still it was like jhola leke haath mein diary, pen, do mobile and all was common. But
Yeah,
still the image portrayed always has been like that.
that is an interesting question. So that way, my parents, especially dad, has always been encouraging in in letting us, I mean, do whatever we want to, and so that way, he never questioned my thing, in the sense he said, do whatever you want to do it well. And in fact, initial years of journalism, initial I think 5 6 months of my journalism career, I was not paid that much. So in fact, he supported me every month with whatever funds he could. I mean, he so that way, uh, there was always this question that this choice of field here, because today, as if you look at today, a lot of these people are fascinated with this television journalism. Print is something which doesn't fascinate anyone because it's not something that people see. I mean, they read, and so this television journalism always fascinates people. But back then, even television journalism was not so not so around us to be fascinated. So definitely, he may have questions, but I don't think he ever asked me anything. He just it's a great question that you've asked, because then you start thinking as to what happened. And yeah,
Correct.
and then
Going back 15 plus years to think what was the
yeah,
reaction then, and now that you're successful in your career, well settled, and things like that,
yeah,
the reaction had changed, and how the family reacts now, and how it was back then.
yeah. I mean,
Right. So,
true. So
Mihir, where are you based right now? Which city are you based in?
Delhi, New Delhi.
Okay, so closer to the power center, always.
Yeah, I've always been in Delhi,
Okay.
and yeah, uh, closer to the power center or not, I don't know, because I'll tell you this instance. No, I'll tell you this interesting instance. So, very early in my career, I was reporting in Business Standard. We used to have these weekly meetings, wherein you discuss stories and things like that. And Mr. Ashok Bhattacharya, who we refer to as AK, a lot of people, he's known in the industry as AKB, used to conduct those meetings. He was the editor. And in one of the meetings, so I was reporting to government ministries then. I won't name the ministries, I won't name the ministers, but yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so he asked me questions about both these ministers, and I said, my this minister is also XYZ, the other minister is also not known for good stuff, so it's all XYZ. And I told all of it that I had, the things that you collect while reporting in the field. And then he said, Mir, I'll tell you this, it's a great thing that you don't like both your ministers. So, so that is my training. So, so my training has taught me not to be close to the power center. So that's the training that I've got.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, if not a journalist, what would have been your alternative career?
Okay, so I'll tell you this. I always wanted to join the army. Went for SSBs and things like that, but never happened. So it never happened. In fact, that's how it is. But
So,
I
to cover the defense beat would excite you. You would still be keeping a track of things, I suppose.
no, see, I read stories, of course, but covering defense beat, I don't think would be as interesting as covering an aviation beat. In the sense. aviation, especially in India, is growing, and we have seen it grow. Both you guys and us have seen it grow. Over the years,
Mm-hmm.
and it always throws some excitement. When you think things are going down, it's all doom and gloom, and then suddenly you have two, three more airlines coming in, and there's suddenly some competition, people hiring. It's an excitement industry to be in,
Mm-hmm.
and also to report on.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think you get that excitement in defense because a lot of it is structured. I think most of it. So aviation, of course, is a much more exciting beat than I think any other beat.
It's always the case, right? In terms of people employed much lesser than many other sectors, in terms
Yeah.
of everything else much lesser than any other sector. Only in case
Hmm.
of losses, much more than all other sectors. But
Yeah.
then the most interesting and the tracked industry in the country, and everybody has a say or interest in this. So that's how it is. So let's move to aviation, right? We've been in
Yeah.
this covering it for a while. I'm sure you would have taken a lot of interviews. I have read a lot of interviews which you have taken or things which are covered. Which was your most memorable interview? Whose interview or which story was it on? If you could share those details with our listeners.
Oh, that's a good one. Uh, there's so many. Um, but the
It-
most interesting, I mean, if you ask me,
Definitely so
each,
many because I said no,
yeah,
I have read itself many. So that's where I get this question, which becomes the most interesting and why.
yeah, yeah. No, so there's so many. And of course, if you ask me, I'll say that all my interviews are the best. But at least, but leaving that aside, in the sense you I was recently. I do have these recordings on the phone, and for the want of anything else, I was just trying to. I was just listening to these interviews that I have recorded over 2-3 years. One of the interviews that I clicked on was Rono Datta's interview, which we had done in November 2019. And the way he explained things, he won't let you go without even a single, even a little doubt in your mind. And why this interview stands out is because even in 2019, Diwali and Dussehra were during the same month in October,
Mm-hmm.
and he was saying that the festive months were disappointing, and our GDP growth is slowing, but things will be better. We will still be growing at 5% GDP and things like that. Um, so, but when you look at today, when you listen to that interview today, you realize that, boss, even in 2019, things were not better. So the airlines entered this whole COVID impacted phase with a not so good year behind them. So when you look at things from that perspective, I would definitely like to, I definitely thought this that airlines did have a very big challenge to, to stay afloat during these COVID months,
Right.
and most of them, and almost all of them, I guess, will successfully be able to come out stronger or better out of this out of this whole pandemic.
And
So, and
yeah, go ahead.
and the best part of Rono's interviews are that he'll explain you everything in detail, which is something that I really like. The other interesting interview, it was the same. So this is all coming from the recording that I was listening to this last weekend. There's this Emirates President's interview. नाम क्या है उसका?
Tim Clark का?
Tim Clark. Huh.
Yeah.
So this was this Tim Clark's interview, and he said something really interesting. He was talking about Air India, and he said, when I first flew a jet, I flew Air India. Air India was such a great airline then. They were going places then, but then suddenly something happened, and now they are not in the best of its states. Why didn't Air India? And he had his viewpoint on this, but the way he mentioned Air India and the way he talked about Air India, you could get that sense that the legacy this carrier has. In the sense he said in the 60s and 70s we used to fly Air India out of Heathrow and things like that. And then you realize that, boss, that is the legacy, or that is the that is the brand that Air India is. And now it's with Tatas, and all of us, a lot of employees as well, hope that it will be revived to its earlier glory. So these two interviews, I think, and not because I may not have done other good interviews, but just that I remember these two from the recordings that I heard last week. Yeah.
Right. And on the other side, any which were really difficult? I know there are no bad interviews as such, but ones which were difficult to get or very difficult in terms of the people you were dealing with in the interview.
No, so I had interviewed this this chairman of a big. So I ultimately didn't do the interview of a big international carrier. Won't name him, of course, or the airline. So there, I had questions on a certain aspect that was impacting Indian aviation. Then it was about some kind of alliance, competition, and things like that. So I wanted to get an answer from him on that aspect, because as a India-based newspaper, we would like to bring in India angle to every story that we do, because that is what our readers want. So and he tried to evade that question once and went on to the other thing, and then I said, yeah, this is fine, but then I need an answer to that question, because that is what our readers or would like to know about. He evaded it again, and then when the third time I brought the same question, he said, what is this? I think our time is over. I said, you came in late. I said, you came in late. He said, yeah, but I think our time is over. I said, yeah, but I'll still ask you one more question and then I'll go. Because when you do it, because then you can't be, as part of, as journalists, you can't be only asking questions that the other guy wants you to ask. So then again, I asked one difficult question and he said, yeah, and then I left. I never did the interview or even a story from that. But that really was not a great experience in a sense, because I think as part of when you are a public figure or when you are a chairman or a CEO, the first thing you should know is how to handle a difficult question, because positive or good questions are always have an answer which the other guy is also happy to hear and you are also happy to share. But the difficulty is in dealing with these questions that you had not expected or you would not want to talk about. So that was kind of disappointing in the sense that he did not take the question or did not want to answer the question in a way that I expected him to.
Right. So let's go to a hypothetical question for you. I don't want to put you in the similar situation which you portrayed.
No.
It's just a joke here. A hypothetical question. If you have to interview someone, right, make it your dream interview. This is the person you've been looking for to interview for last many years. Who would that person be?
I think I would like to interview Ratan Tata.
Wow. That was a pinpointed answer, as if it was there right at the back of your mind. You get a chance, you're going to go and interview it. More so in current times after the Tata deal.
No. It has always been there, even during Vistara or even during Air Asia times. I'll tell you what, because I'll not just interview him. I'll also take his autograph and take a picture with him. I'll tell you why. Because as journalists, you meet a lot of people, huh? And I have never gone ahead and asked anyone for a picture or anything. That's not me, because I'm not meeting them socially. I'm meeting them on a professional level. So I should not be doing it. That's my way of thinking. It may be wrong. It may be right. I'm not saying the other guy is wrong and I'm right, and vice versa. But when I meet Ratan Tata, I would definitely get an autograph and a picture with him. That's for sure. And plus, just imagine the kind of questions I can ask him. I can ask him about everything. I can ask him about, it's so much to ask. Even, and I think I'd need a full 5 hours to, get the answers to all that questions and things like that. Because these are people who have, one reason, of course, is that he has interests in aviation, and he would talk about a lot of things. So many things we can talk about. Plus, he has done so much across verticals. I don't know how many pages would we need if we get a big Ratan Tata interview.
You have a full plan in mind. I don't think reading any interview of his, even after Vistara AirAsia coming into play,
No,
probably he hasn't
no,
done
no,
it with anyone.
no.
Great. So I
I think
I,
the whole.
I hope you get it, and my good wishes for that. Hopefully.
Thank you so much. I am also still hopeful.
Great. So that's really an interesting, right? So, Mir, you've been tracking aviation for so long, right? 2007, you got into journalism soon, by luck or chance or whichever way into aviation. What had changed since then? That those were the heydays of Kingfisher and Jet Airways. They were neck to neck. Things have really moved on since then. Both these airlines and the airlines which they acquired, four of them went down so far. Of
Yeah.
course, things have moved. Indigo was too small then. Maybe maybe these as they by
Hmm.
2008 or 9. From there to
Hmm.
being like what, 260 plus planes used to be the total Indian capacity a couple of
Hmm.
years ago. So you have tracked it closely. What are your views on the sector at that? And these are not any airline specific, but overall, you've
No.
seen it grow closely.
Hmm. The sector, I think with Air India divestment, it would get a little professional, in the sense, uh, with a state-owned carrier where the losses were funded by the government, directly or indirectly. Um, uh, Clearly, was holding the sector from becoming a professionally run sector. But with Tata Group getting Air India, Indigo being another professional airline, and Akasha, all other airlines who are also coming in would be professionally run, in the sense. Also, I've seen one major change in the sector. When I started, there were these individuals who were bigger than the airline. Uh, like Dr. Vijay Mallya was much bigger than Kingfisher Airlines. Naresh Goyal was much bigger than Jet Airways, and government, of course, was bigger than Air India. But that seems to be moving, and which may be an indicator that the sector is becoming professional over the years. We are learning it. We are learning to do things right, maybe. Because when you look at Indigo, you don't look at it from a promoter perspective, or or the promoter being much bigger than the airline itself. So that change surely is happening, and hopefully the industry, uh, gets much more professional over the years. So that, I think, is a positive change. And in terms of airlines uh, not doing well, also because promoters were in the case of one airline, clearly the promoter's pride, we saw then, was bigger than the airline. So he did things he should not have. Similarly, if you look at the another full service carrier which went bust in 2019, there also during the last minute, the stories that we did, the promoter was not ready to give up control, that kind of a thing. Uh, so so when a person becomes bigger than the airline, uh, it's the person's pride rather than the airline's business logic or things like that. So that clearly seems to be changing. And Let's hope it gets better from here.
Interesting point, Mir. There, completely, never that I realized that, yeah, that is how it was 10, 15 years ago, where the individual was bigger than the airline, and
Yeah,
slowly the industry has managed to kill that phenomenon and get into
yeah,
the airline brand being bigger than anything else. And looks like that is what is going to happen with Air India as well, and the eventual
yeah,
merger with Tata. That's a very valid
yeah,
point.
yeah.
So, Mir, coming towards the end of this recording, right,
Mm,
you have seen journalism grow as well. And today, when we see a lot of it, and COVID accelerated it for sure, a lot of it is
mm,
moving from free to paid. So, the
mm,
newspaper circulations have been stagnant, if not going down.
mm,
Online is picking up, and so
mm,
is the case with paid things. I mean, your company itself as ET Prime, Times of India, a lot of things are becoming paid. So how do you
mm,
see it going from here on? And this is not a question for your company, but
mm.
overall as a media thing, as a consumer, will the consumer have to pay going forward for every news? Where do you see this heading?
No, consumers are always paid when they were buying newspaper. Uh, they paid for a newspaper. Of course, newspapers are never free. We have always paid for newspapers. I'm talking about internet or pre these website days. Then when you watched television channels or television news channels, we always paid for subscribing to those television channels. So there was always a payment involved, which was not a direct payment involved. In the sense, the thing only that has changed is that when you go to a website, and plus the whole problem was that when we launched these websites, I mean all of it was free because I think media houses were also trying to experiment with things like that. So it was all free, and then suddenly it is charged. So people are talking about it that why should we pay for this story or that story? Why is everything paid? Why is everything behind the paywall and things like that? But these are all initial troubles. And this happens across all sectors. When you increase your television subscription fee, there is of course a noise about it. Likewise, if you increase newspaper prices, there's of course a noise about it. But eventually, people will have to pay. That is going to be the model forward, and websites increasingly will be charged because people's habits are changing. They are no more into reading newspapers, but more into reading things on the mobile. In fact, my dad is 67, 68 years old, and he has all these apps, Economic Times, Times of India apps on his phone, and he checks it time and again. Though he reads two newspapers even today, but he checks those apps because he says कि इसमें तुरंत आ जाता है, suddenly आ जाता है. And these development. If you're not watching television 24/7, you get it through these apps. They send you notifications that this has happened and that has happened. So clearly, some people are using are still going with both newspaper and mobile phones and reading it on the internet. But a large part of young population do not subscribe to any physical thing, and they are reading it on the internet. So if you're reading it on the internet, you'll have to pay. Plus, the biggest thing about making payments that subscribers, I don't think will ever be able to relate to is when you pay for a story or journalism, then you're reducing the dependence of that particular website or anything on ads, on some kind of ad, some kind of dole out
Absolutely.
from government and things like that. So and that helps you do quality journalism. So you're actually, if you want the industry to grow, if you want a vibrant media in the country, if you want your issues to be raised, uh, that is a very small payment to make. So actually, you're actually contributing to a media that will help the country over, eventually, because any kind of reportage
Right.
should not be controlled by the
Mhm.
sponsors or yeah.
Right. So, Mir, you made one very interesting statement. As your father said, "Turant aa jata hai." These are the days of
Uh,
breaking news on social media and everywhere.
yeah,
News is created in 160 characters on
yeah,
Twitter, and then
yeah.
the days of waiting for a nice headline are far gone. People still wait for it, but if it's a very big news, otherwise the whole headline thing is dropping off slowly. So,
Hmm.
in your memory, any news which you were the one breaking for the industry, you were the first to write or break as such?
Hmm. No, there are so many stories, but since we are discussing, my dad and his preference, uh, that was chutti for me, and I was home, and suddenly I wake up at 5 a.m. and I see a message from a source saying that it was a notan saying that Pakistan has opened their airspace for us. Those times when post that. The Pakistani airspace was closed for our airlines or for all the airlines for about
Right,
1.5 hours, if
right,
I'm not wrong. Yeah, so I woke up at 5 and I saw, oh, this is a big story. So I immediately filed it, huh? And I filed it at 5:30 or something, and then I released it for the web. Of course, it can't go to print then.
right,
And then I slept, of course, and then I woke up again, and my dad was reading newspaper, and then he was also on the phone, and he said, Pakistan has opened uh, its airspace. So I said, yeah, where did you get it? So he said, नहीं नहीं ऊटी के ऐप पे आया है. So मैंने बोला, oh, that is my story. You read the byline. And then he read the byline and he said, oh, I didn't realize it's your story. So that's the change that is happening, and and you feel good when your own people talk about your story. People will talk about your story, you write it, but then it hits, So that's something you remember. These things you remember, no, little things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Fun.
so, that's one thing, that I kind of will always remember.
Yeah, I mean, I'll conclude it with a similar story with
Yeah.
my father. I was quoted in one article, and honestly, I don't remember which newspaper that was.
Yeah.
Been quoted in multiple ones. So he was
Hmm.
traveling somewhere on Indigo. That is what I remember. And
Uh-huh.
after landing, he messaged me saying that this is the news, and the news was about Indigo, and he was
Hmm.
messaging me all this, and
Hmm.
I was busy with something, so I did not
Hmm.
check. And after
Hmm.
15 minutes, there was another message. Oh, you already know because in this article you are quoted. So
Hmm.
this was
Hmm.
on the second or third page. The story
Hmm.
was in multiple pages, and
Hmm.
that's when he said, "Oh, you already know it because you are part of that story." So I said, "Yeah, I
Hmm.
know that." That's,
Yeah,
that's
so
fun.
these are little
Yeah.
things that you remember. Yeah.
Absolutely. Samir, that gets us to the end of the show. I hope you enjoyed talking to me as much as I enjoyed asking you questions and recording this. And I sincerely hope our listeners also like listening to your thoughts and how we went around this.